Hello and welcome back to the show. Today we are reviewing Everton and Luton, that game. I don't really want to talk about this, but here we are. Inconsistency plagues us. You know, midweek, Villa got the W convincingly, got the dub against Brentford, obviously with a better side. Today, started well, had a, decent patch at the back end of the first half. Outside of that, God, what was that? The whole second half, we might as well have not been there. The edge that we required to get the lead back, 2 goals, very, very easy to regain the lead. You know, in a couple of minutes, you can really turn the tide, but we never ever showed urgency or assertiveness in trying to find a way to, reach the brighter side of the tunnel. The brighter end, you get the idea. We have become XG merchants. Obviously, it's calculated differently between different outlets, but I saw somewhere, the source I found, our XG is like 13 or something, and we've scored 4 goals this season. It's ridiculous. 24 shots today. There were a couple sitters. Beto in the second half got his head to a couple, and given he's 6'4", he should have no issues guiding the ball downward, but instead he skied it over the bar. So look, it is what it is, but we talked about inconsistency last week. These players are in charge of everything. The mistakes we make, the goals we score, the missed chances we don't convert, it is all down to them. And I don't know what the instructions were at halftime. I don't know if Sean Dyche said we needed to play more cautiously in the dressing room, or the players just flat out didn't execute. Look, I think it's the latter, because there's a very memorable moment from this game entrenched in my mind. Sean Dyche was about 5 meters away from where we were throwing the ball in along the touchline, and he's constantly trying to get this team going. I mean, he can only do so much from, his confined area on the sidelines. He was constantly trying to tell this team to get going, and he was visibly frustrated when Vitaly Mykolenko, who was throwing it in, just didn't show a sense of urgency. The players on the pitch weren't really coming towards him either. I think there was another moment later in the game where we had it closer to our own goal, where none of our players were even making themselves available from the throw-in. So that really summarizes our second half. That embodies what we were doing in the second half. No edge. I do think that we needed to make less changes than we did. Ultimately today, I think brought back 5 players that were missing from the midweek fixture, but the midweek fixture was very fruitful. James Garner and Onana had blinders. And then you bring Garner and Doucouré back into the mix, and all of a sudden, you've got Garner out wide again. That's James Garner. And you've got Idrissa Gana Gueye in the middle, who was ultimately subbed off. And by that point, we'd obviously shipped off 2 goals. It's too late. You're chasing tail. We are a team that does not have the capabilities to, break down defenses. And Luton, to their credit, held firm, sat back, and didn't allow us to really get going. We were just lofting the ball to, the target men, who, by the way, need a lot of work in terms of how they work together on the pitch, because a lot of the time they were getting in each other's way. They would either commit fully to being the target, or they would both not go up. So there was no in between. I do put this down to, though, like the lack of assertiveness. I put it down to the engine room. I thought Gana Gueye coming off would do a lot for us in terms of elevating that energy and helping us get some more high percentage chances. But it was anything but. I mean, if anything, it made it more predictable, because we were going to Jack Harrison down that right-hand side basically every single time we brought it up. And, obviously you make things predictable. It's very easy for defenses to anticipate and cut things off. And then the midfield themselves, they just did not... Well, there were a lot of gaps. on the defensive side of things, but attacking wise, they weren't really offering anything. And DCL as well looked fairly off in terms of positioning. There was one play where he just needed to sort his body out and square himself up with where the ball was going, and it just took way too long. And it was in a really good position. It was just on the edge of the penalty box, and he's completely lost possession or stunted the possession because he was just too slow on it. And that really embodied us today. The 2 goals we conceded were atrocious. I don't understand how you can't realize what Luton were doing and adjust accordingly. It seems like there's no plan B. It seemed like we didn't have a plan in place for the out swingers. We only had the plan in place for the in swingers. Obviously we got punished. Luton were opportunistic. That is the difference, and has been the difference in all our Goodison games this year, basically. The opposition has been opportunistic, and we have simply not been clinical enough. And that's a problem because ultimately goals are what matters. The chances are good, sure. But when the results are not coming from it, then we have a huge problem. And now with strikers in the mix, we need consistency out of these guys, and we can't be having awful performances that lack output in games like today where the points are up for grabs and you're going into it as rare favourites. And that's a pretty sad sight to see, a pretty sad thing to say as well, that we are rare favourites. And it takes a game against Luton for that to happen, and we still lose the game. So Everton just keep on Evertoning, or whatever. It's a verb at this point. There were a couple of good performances in there. Dwight McNeil in the first half was pretty good in terms of getting those deliveries into the box. There was one where James Garner got onto the end of it. He was pretty good in the first half as well. But, in the second half where the game was there to be won, and, it really called on us to take control. We didn't answer the call. We simply hung up. We heard what the person on the other end of the line had to say, and then we were like, well, I'm not listening to this. It doesn't concern me. I'm hanging up. And they did. Look, it is another disappointing weekend. It could have been a really good week. 3 victories has been unheard of for a week of following Everton Football Club, and unfortunately we couldn't complete the treble. That's what the treble looks like for us at the moment. But look, Jared Branthwaite was pretty good again today. There were a couple times where we were caught out off guard, and Branthwaite got back, recovered, made up the ground, put in a challenge. I think the really telling thing for me is the yellow cards. Now, no yellow cards today. And that may be because the referee was letting things go. But what that tells me is there was no edge, no ruthlessness. There were a couple times where players, chickened out of it when there was a ball to be won. That's how Luton scored their first goal. Ashley Young, all he needed to do was eye off the boundary and just send it there, because he took way too long trying to figure out where he wanted to kick it. The Luton player, Lockyer, was way more reactionary, but it was those kind of little moments which would have, really flipped the script or changed the complexity of the game. And unfortunately, we were well off the mark in the second half. I don't know what was going through those players' minds, but it was pure negligence. For the goals we conceded, how there was a striker, of all players, of all personnel, you leave a striker open on the back post. We've got leaders in that back line, Tarkovsky and Young. I don't understand how they weren't across that. Even Mikolenko on the back post, he should just know there's a player behind. That is completely ignorant. Just pure negligence in the way we focused on the game attacking-wise, in trying to chase the game. If you could call it that, we never chased the game. It didn't even look like we wanted to win, despite having all that possession. Obviously, punished for it. You're going to get punished for it. It's the Premier League. You can't take certain oppositions for granted. And here we are again, disappointed. And we've got Bournemouth next week. That is a huge match, as is every game, as Sean Dyche would say in his very cliche-filled press conferences. Look, Dyche, a lot of people are bagging him, saying that it's Dyche out. As much as the game plan is boring and it looks very uninspiring and the tactics are not present, I do have to say that the shots are being generated. As much as we can diss his system, we are getting shots. Some of those are lower percentage, and some of them are, outside the box. I mean, I don't know how many Ghana Gay shots have been skied, 15 feet over the bar, but, we're getting chances, and we could have had 3 goals in 15 minutes, but it is a game of shoulda, coulda, woulda, and, unfortunately, we're on we've got the short end of the stick. So we go into next week, very important fixture. Let's see how we go. If you did enjoy this one, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. We're here back every week for every single Everton Premier League fixture, reacting to it. So thank you. Have a good one. We'll see you soon, and bye for now.